Hello, friends. The 744th day of the war between Russia and Ukraine continues. In recent days, the enemy has not stopped pressing west of Avdiivka, reports the Ukrainian Telegram channel Deep State. The enemy has become more active in several areas near the city. One of the enemy's main attacks is on the northern part of Berdychi. There the Russians want to establish control to push the defense forces into the western part of the village, in Orlivka. The Russian army is pressing in the eastern part of the village in order to completely capture it and carry out sabotage strikes south of Semenivka. Difficult situation with Tonenke. Here pressure comes from the south and north of the settlement. At the same time, the enemy was knocked out of those houses where they hung their flags. Of course, the creation of normal fortified defensive lines has now begun in full swing. But in this area they must be prepared in advance, and today the guys have to pay with their own blood and lives to gain this precious time to build prepared lines, writes Deep State. According to Ukrainian Telegram channels, today the Ukrainian armed forces attacked enemy infantry in the northwestern part of Tonenke with drone drops. According to geo-referenced footage from a Ukrainian drone, Russian troops advanced to a depth of 1.35 kilometers. At the same time, information is received about the clearing of the settlement by the Ukrainian army. The situation in Tonenke is being clarified. Also, the Ukrainian authorities today announced the forced evacuation of children in 4 settlements of the Donetsk region. It is not reported where. Yesterday, the same thing was done in the Kupiansk district of the Kharkiv region. If you look at the situation in the Donetsk region as a whole, then Russia's offensive has slowed down compared to the period immediately after the fall of Avdiivka. Russian military telegram channels write that the Ukrainian armed forces are transferring large reserves to those areas where the Russian army is most actively advancing. First of all, near Avdiivka, on the line Tonenke, Orlivka, Berdychi, on the Vuhledar direction near Novomykhailivka, and near Bakhmut. Because of this, the Russian advance there has slowed down, and in some places the Ukrainian army is even trying to counterattack. The situation is similar now in the Berdychi region. That is, the war is gradually returning to the previous format of slow advances and multi-day or even multi-week battles for landings and villages. And in a war of this type, the key question is who will have more reserves, which both warring armies are now actively sending to the front. At one time, the Ukrainian offensive in the Zaporizhia direction stopped because the reserves of the Ukrainian armed forces came to an end, and the Russians were able to continue to replenish their units. Therefore, even now, everything depends on the ratio of reserves. If the Russians run out of them, then their offensive will stop in the same way as the offensive of the Ukrainian army did last summer. If the Ukrainian troops currently defending in heavy battles run out of reserves earlier, the front may roll back even further to the west. There is also an opinion that Russia's current strategy is designed not so much to seize new territories as to deplete Ukrainian resources in the face of a shortage of Western aid. This is quite widespread among military experts. This reality is often recognized by speakers from the Ukrainian armed forces. Further, this situation, according to various analysts, can develop in 2 ways. According to one scenario, Moscow, while conducting operations to deplete the Ukrainian army, is simultaneously preparing fresh forces for a larger strike that could follow when the circumstances arise. For example, when closer to May or June the soil dries out. And also when, due to a lack of external supplies, the defense of the Ukrainian armed forces begins to systematically weaken. According to another scenario, which was recently voiced by the head of the main intelligence department Budonov, Russia does not have enough forces for a major offensive, and therefore the current positional battles will continue. But in the end it all comes down to the issue of the ratio of reserves. Western media, judging by their tone, are extremely concerned about the prospects of the Ukrainian army to contain the Russian offensive. This is not the first article that has been published about the fact that Ukraine needs its own line of defense, similar to the one that the Russians built in the south of Ukraine. The Wall Street Journal wrote yesterday that Kyiv needs to dig and dig. Fortifications, according to the newspaper, are being built to the west of Avdiivka. The Ukrainians are trying to repeat the physical obstacles that Russia created on its side of the front more than a year ago. But while Ukraine announced in November that it was building a network of fortifications along its front line. Ukrainian military and Western officials say the campaign has produced no significant results. After the loss of Avdiivka, building a defense became even more difficult. Soldiers in the area say troops assigned to combat missions are forced to dig trenches, often under fire, the article said. Civilian workers do not help with this, the military adds. Ukraine has few fortified areas left in the Donbas that could compete with Avdiivka, writes the Wall Street Journal. After the loss of the city, the Ukrainian armed forces have to fight the advancing forces while simultaneously trying to build fortifications. This is the type of operation that well-established militaries often undertake, and Ukrainian forces are not always adept at, especially since many of the country's best-trained troops have been killed or wounded over the past 2 years, the article says. Friends, preparing these daily reports has become my full-time job, and I have no other job for obvious reasons. There have been few views on the channel lately, which is why I asked for your help. If you have the opportunity to support me financially, I would be very grateful. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.